we can just start and
Yeah.
we'll like come back. But since we were just talking about loneliness before this, I want to come back to that.
Hmm.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah. So when I quit my 9 to 5, I also moved to another country at the same time. So I really just like cut myself off from everyone I knew. Like, not intentionally, it just happened that way. And
Mhm.
so not only was I physically isolated, but I was doing a new kind of work in a totally new environment. Um, and it was really hard to meet people online. And I felt like I couldn't relate to my friends anymore.
Mm,
Because not only did they not understand like the coaching space, personal development space, the online space, but also I was growing and changing so much internally. And I was like learning about the law of attraction at that time and like really becoming self aware for the first time in my life. And like I felt like I was becoming a whole different person. And so,
mm.
yeah, for like the past 7, almost 8 years, I've been lonely.
Ugh, ugh. It's like it's so fascinating. I don't know. I can relate to so much of this. I think I could relate to this even before leaving my job, but I could relate to so much of this now because it feels like, I mean, I haven't moved to another country, so like let's be fair. Like that, I'm just like, oh shit. Um, but yeah, it feels almost like you're on an island because you have people that, and coaching is really interesting too, because when you make friends in the coaching space who do similar work as you, and then when you meet with them and you have really deep conversations, it's almost like we're sometimes coaching each other, right? Like we'll just like go into some deep talk and the lines get kind of interesting because you're like, "Hey, do you want to schedule some time to talk?" And then you're kind of like, "Should I be paying this person? Should they be paying me? Like what's going on?" And I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes that can cause this disconnect of and even in friendship, right, with other people who are in the coaching industry, like I love you so much for this actually because it's so easy for me to send you a message and be like, "Hey, can we talk through this?" And like you do the same thing with me and it feels really good, but I feel like that's very rare, right? I feel like it's super rare where most of the coaches that I know that I've worked with, that I've interviewed on the podcast, that I've kind of connected with maybe through social media, it feels very much like we're deeply connected and friends, and it also feels like I wanna respect them, and so I would never just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, can you talk through this with
Yeah.
me? I
Yeah,
need
and
some
it's
help," right?
it's hard to reach out sometimes when you need that support because those lines do get a little bit blurred sometimes, especially when you've like hired each other in the past. 'Cause I've
Mhm.
had friends that I've coached, and then they've been my coach, and then we just grew really close out of that. But like, I would never want someone to feel like I'm taking advantage of them
Mhm.
and trying to get free coaching out of it. When really, I just like I need a friend because like today I have anxiety or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's really fascinating. Um, well, thank you, by the way, just
Mm,
for being such a great friend
thank
and
you.
for making it really easy. So for anyone listening, we just kind of dove into conversation. Jess is an amazing human being who is her own entrepreneur, runs her own business, but also does my media management. So like all of my social media graphics, all of the podcast graphics, she edits videos, like just does so much invaluable work for me. And then as someone who how did we meet? So I know like over Instagram, but you came to one of my master classes. That's like really how we got connected. And
Mhm.
then I put up a note that I was hiring a VA and you applied immediately. And I was like, okay, you're way more qualified than a VA. And I've been thinking about this other position. So if you want to do this, like let's do this. Um, yeah, and then we just became really great friends. It was like an instant click. Yeah, so can we talk about your story though? Like full up. So just
Yeah.
like start from the beginning. It can be like work, non-work related, anything and everything. Definitely maybe come back to, well, we'll come back to like as you leave your job, but I want to hear about other country experience as well and just all of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, how far back do you want me to go for my story? Like college or like
Oh,
entrepreneur journey?
um, maybe even like So at your discretion, maybe even like a little before college, right? Like formative years to now, like who were you? I mean, you were still you, but yeah, like who were you? How have you grown? How have you changed? Who are you now? All of it.
Mm, yeah. Well, I am a Texas girl, born and raised. And when I was growing up, I'm a Leo as well. So I always loved being the center of attention. And I was such a ham. Like I would put on performances for my family and like dances and sing for them and stuff. And like I wanted to be a movie star. Like that was my dream job. That changed around middle school. And I sort of closed up and got really self-conscious, kind of about everything. Um, and that was exacerbated by the fact that my stepdad was alcoholic and
Mhm,
was pretty verbally abusive.
mhm,
And so it really took a toll on my self-esteem. And so um, I kind of dove into religion. That was like my
mm,
safe space. I went to Bible study all the time. I went to church camp every summer. I worked at church camp. And it was just my thing. And I've always been very much into theology,
mhm,
spirituality, and just wanting to know everything about that. And so, right after high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was sort of just assumed that just you're going to college, but I didn't really have any guidance or any like passions at that time. So I didn't know what I was going to study. Um, and I actually, funny story, I almost went into seminary.
no way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is so good. It's so funny too. As you're saying this, like so much is coming back to me. So I'm like, oh yeah, we talked about this religion wise, because like you and I have a really similar story and background in that way. Because I too went through that, like Bible study was a really safe space for me, and like going to youth group and like going to church. And I think there was a moment in my life where I was at church for like, I don't know, 5, 6 times a week.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's fascinating. And like, so what, why didn't you go to seminary?
Gosh, it was about, so when I just got out of high school, I decided to take, the quintessential backpacking trip to Europe, right? So I went to this place called Libri, and it's in Utrecht, Netherlands, and it was a work study, like Bible study kind of environment. So it was like, I don't know, 12 US dollars a day to stay there and sleep there. But you did work on the property or cooked or whatever for half the day. And then the other half the day, you go into their gigantic library and study theology and have mentors you can talk to. And I stayed there for a month and it was incredible. Like I loved it. Um, and then when I came back, I started going to college and I continued going to church, but it just sort of stopped. I don't really know what it was, but it just sort of stopped resonating with me.
Mhm, mhm.
Just the whole organized religion. I was still very
Yeah.
spiritual and I still believed in
Mhm,
God and like I still do, but I guess Christianity as a whole and just like organized religion
mhm.
wasn't doing it for me anymore. And I saw so many flaws with it, especially when it comes to LGBTQ plus community. Like
Yeah.
I actually got in an argument with my Sunday school teacher about that.
Oh my goodness. I
In
love
Sunday
this.
school once, they were trying to tell me that anyone who was gay was going to hell. And
Mhm.
like I talked back to her and got in so much trouble. But that was sort of like the start of me feeling like this doesn't really resonate with me anymore. And I think it was like the third Sunday in a row when the pastor was talking about tithing to the
Mm,
church. And I was like,
mhm.
this is bullshit. And so I just kept going. And I sort of did a 180. Like I was a super like
Mhm.
square good girl. And then I went
Yeah.
full blown like sex, binge drinking, partying, like all of it.
Uh-huh.
And that continued like throughout my 20s, like whole decade, I was just a hot mess. So that's why I didn't go to seminary, to answer your question.
Fair.
But I was always still like very curious about spirituality. And in my early 30s, I started getting into yoga.
Mhm.
And this is also the time when I was working my first like real 9 to 5 job. So I had always been in the service industry. I was a barista for about 10 years. And I ended up working for a brewery in Colorado, and I would give brewery tours and serve beer, and it was great. And then I moved up into the finance and accounting department, and like, so that was like my first like real job, and I was so
Mhm.
excited. I had my own desk, and I thought that like, this is it. This is what I've been wanting. I'm
Mhm.
set. And it was about 2 years into that when I just started becoming very, very dissatisfied
Mm,
with my
mhm.
work. And I gaslit myself about it because it was an incredible company. It was highly coveted, my
Mhm.
job, and
Mm.
like anyone would have like killed to have my position and work for that company. And so I gaslit myself. I'm like, I should be happy, but I just wasn't. And I remember sitting at my desk one day doing data entry, just thinking like, this doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And I want to do something that matters with my life.
Mhm.
I want to do
Yeah.
something that's actually really helping people. And so it was around that time that I was doing yoga in my room, and I was in child's pose. And I remember hearing, you need to teach this. And that was the first time I think I got like just a very clear message, like from the universe or from
Mhm.
my guides, whoever it was. And it kind of shocked me because I was like, I can't even touch my toes. I don't know what I'm doing. How could I teach yoga? That's ridiculous. But I
Mm.
decided to listen to it, and I enrolled in
Mhm.
yoga teacher training. And that was in
Yeah.
2014. And so that was sort of the start of this journey of like leaving the, I guess, like normal kind of work world and like into this,
Mhm.
you know, being your own boss kind of world.
Yeah.
And it was very quickly in yoga teacher training. About a couple weeks in, I realized that I wanted to take people even deeper than what I could on the yoga mat. And so
Mhm.
I was looking for life coaching certifications. And it was so funny. Like, you can't make this shit up. I was online just searching random life coaching certifications, and I found this program called Yoga to Life. And it was specifically for yoga teachers who wanted to be life coaches. When I clicked
Mhm.
on the page and I scrolled down and I saw the mentor coach that ran that program, she was my flippin' yoga teacher. So I went to her in person and I was like, hey, I found this program online. How weird. And she gave me a 50% scholarship to it. And she was like my
How
personal
weird.
mentor for becoming a life coach.
I love this.
So yeah, that was pretty amazing. So I got done with yoga teacher training. I started life coach training, and I never really ended up teaching yoga. I always thought that I would. I was like, oh, this is going to be my path. I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And like, I did a few lunchtime classes at the brewery
Mhm.
before I quit, but it just didn't really feel like what I was going to end up doing. But when I finished up my life coaching certification, there wasn't any sort of business training. So I was highly skilled. I was a very effective coach, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I had no idea how to get clients. So instead of going that route, I became a Beachbody coach, which I think a lot of people do to start out
Mhm.
in network marketing. And I definitely don't regret it. It's kind of an embarrassing part of my journey that I don't like talking about because I made so many mistakes because they teach you how to market so awfully.
Ugh.
Um, and it's just, yeah, it's cringe. But I'm really glad I did it because it took me about a year before I started gaining traction. And I actually started like moving up and doing well. And then I realized that once I get into these sort of like leadership situations within Beachbody, that I didn't like how they were telling me I needed to run my business and how I needed to show up on social media. And I didn't
Mhm.
like how they were giving me scripts. Like, they would pass around posts. Like, here's a post,
Mhm.
you know, maybe change it, maybe not, like use this, it'll get you X results. And I really, that didn't sit well with me at all. And so that's then what led me into coaching. And I had just like this aha moment of I really want to, like, I believe that you can do whatever you want in life and you can create your own reality, right? You can create any job that you want. And so I decided that I wanted to help people who were starting businesses and like becoming entrepreneurs, create very authentic strategies and have very
Mhm.
authentic social media and authentic branding.
Oh,
And so that's how I started. I started coaching in 2016. Um,
mhm.
my first year, really like my first 6 months were a whirlwind. It was nuts. I signed my first coaching client, paid in full, within first few weeks of me starting coaching. I started out in Facebook groups. That's basically like what everyone did back then. And I ended up starting my own Facebook group, and I was so fired up about this whole like sort of like business in a box kind of thing, like do what I do and you'll get X results. I was so fired up about
Mhm.
that because I thought it was just so wrong,
Yeah.
that I was very vocal about it. And it was the first time that I had ever really started using my voice just ever in my life.
Mm.
And so it caused a lot of anxiety for me. I really had to get used to seeing myself as the person who could actually use her voice and like speak out about things. To be honest, I'm still getting used to seeing myself that way. But yeah, because I was speaking out and saying things, it wasn't even necessarily having a position that was against the norm, but it was just saying something different. And so I wasn't blending in. Everyone was noticing me. And my first Facebook group grew. I think I hit like, it was like 1,000 members in the first month and a half. And then I ended up with like 4,000 members in my Facebook group before I closed it, in like a little over a year. Um, People were reaching out to me to do podcast interviews. I did a guest post for a blog that had 1 million subscribers to it. And I was just getting like all this attention, and it really freaked me out. So I did like a whole lot of self
Oh,
sabotage in that first
yeah.
year because it ramped up so fast. And like, coming back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this, about loneliness, right?
Mhm.
And like, I didn't have support. I didn't
Mm.
have a coach. If I could go back and do
Mhm.
things differently, I would have hired a coach during that time to keep me from self
Mm.
sabotaging.
Mhm.
Um, but I just felt really alone, and I was really in my head and really anxious. And so I would just do a lot of things that would sort of like kill my momentum.
Yeah.
So that's sort of it in a nutshell. My journey to being a coach. And in 2018, I started doing EFT. So
Mhm.
I guess that's a whole other story. I'll try and make it quick.
You're
But
fine, yeah. Tell all.
um, I was feeling really stuck in my business. Things had become really, really hard. It wasn't flowing, and it just felt super difficult. And I wasn't signing clients. I had a period of not signing clients for about 4 months. And so I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need to take a break and figure out what it is I want or like what I'm doing. And so I took a whole month to just focus on myself and self care and my mindset and really become aware of the beliefs I had about business and success.
Mm.
Because I knew that that was like the biggest thing that was going to impact my success was how I was thinking about it.
Mhm.
And so that's when I got really into EFT, and I decided to do a certification program. And I didn't really think that I was really going to become an EFT practitioner, like make that a business, but I was just doing it for myself, kind of like with yoga teacher training. Like I just wanted that for
Mhm.
my own personal growth. But when I started tapping on all of my beliefs, my limiting beliefs about business and about money, especially, like things shifted for me instantly.
Mm.
And I went from, I was barely even promoting my offers at that point, but I went from having no clients for 4 months to booking 22 sessions in a matter of 2 weeks. And then, so yeah, I was booking these EFT sessions because I was like, yo, this shit works. Like, you need to get
Yeah, yeah.
so I booked, yeah, 22 sessions, and then I sold out a group program, like a group tapping circle. And then I booked out my one-on-one spots for the first time ever in my coaching practice. I was fully booked. And yeah, so then I just sort of stuck with EFT for a couple of years. And it wasn't until late last year that I started feeling really burnt out, and I just wasn't having fun anymore. And I just sort of felt like all the emotions were just so heavy, and it didn't really feel aligned for me anymore. And what was really bringing me joy was art and creating. And I should also add, I'm jumping around in the story a lot, but whatever. So during
It's
the
okay.
pandemic, the first lockdown, I decided that I was going to follow my passion of becoming a tattoo artist. And that's something that was always sort of a secret passion that I just never really let myself entertain because I didn't think I could do it. My degree in college ended up being photography only because I didn't think I could draw. Like, I took one art class
Interesting. Okay.
and it was figure drawing and like realism. I'm so bad at that. And I was like, oh, this is what art is. Okay, I'm not an artist. So I started shooting photos, um, which is art. So that's silly. But anyway,
Yeah.
I was I was getting tattooed by my friend and tattoo artist in Sedona in 2020, and I was like, yo, you have my favorite job ever. Like, I wish I could do this. And she was like, why can't you? And I was like, well, I can't draw. And she was like, well, drawing's a skill, right? You can learn how to do it. And just like my brain exploded.
You're like, wait.
Wait, what? So yeah, during the first lockdown, I started teaching myself how to draw, and it was so fun. I started sharing that online, and I didn't care how bad it was. I just wanted to like share this passion and share my journey of learning this new skill. And just sharing all my bad art was really inspiring people. And I was so surprised by that. Like, I thought I would be embarrassed, but really, like, people would message me all the time, like, Jess, I'm getting back into doing, whatever, or I'm learning how to do this thing, because you're showing up. And I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome. So I started getting some design clients during that time. People were reaching out to me about, doing illustrations for their businesses, sticker designs. I was doing portraits. I was selling portraits, and I was really hustling it. And then I hit this like plateau where I got really frustrated with my growth, and I couldn't figure out what my style was, and I was really overthinking it and comparing myself to other people, other artists. And so I stopped drawing for a long time. And then I guess that was around the time when I started working for you. And so yeah,
Yes.
I quit doing EFT because it just felt too heavy. Like, I have enough of my own emotions. Like, I don't need to be holding others every single day. It's too much. And yeah, everything just felt difficult. And so I just like threw my hands in the air. I was like, universe, take the wheel, and give me an opportunity. And it was like literally the next day that you posted about needing a VA, and then we connected in that way. So yeah,
Oh,
I guess
so good.
that's it in a nutshell. Well, then, okay, not quite. So that brings us to now. And I'm like all in with brand design. So like I dabbled in that over the past couple of years, and it's just really become a bigger passion. And I just want to create for a job. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've really let go of coaching as well, and I'm just all in with brand design. And I still do have the dream of tattooing. I just need to get my butt in a tattoo school here in Oregon and that'll happen. So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no, it's gonna happen. I love this. I love all of this so much because for anybody listening, I think it's so important. You've been an entrepreneur for 7 years now,
yeah.
and you've done, I can count at least four different things, but like I think it's more than that. So you've done like coaching, full on coaching, EFT. Um, you've done artwork, like you've sold art. And that was like almost even a completely separate thing, even though you kind of did it together. You're doing brand design and development now. When you started, you were working on helping people. This is funny, by the way. I wrote this down specifically because, wait, where did I write it down? I'm like, hold on, I've been writing stuff down. Oh, you said that you, as you were leaving network marketing, you really wanted to help people create authentic strategies and authentic branding because you were just like so um what's the word, constricted, constrained by what it was that you were given, right? Which is so cool. It's really funny because it's almost like you've come full circle now, right? It's like you started in this place of like, I really want to help people with authentic strategy and authentic branding. You said even branding at that point. And
Mhm.
then you're like, you went out, you did that, and then you tried all of these other things that felt good as you were called to do them, and then you let them down. So I love this so much because it's like you tried it. You're like, this is really great. I found some success. I'm actually good. I don't want to do this anymore. And you let it go gracefully. And then you found something else. And it's almost like you gained all of this really beautiful experience of your own and what it means to grow a business, not just one, but like multiple businesses, right? In multiple different years. And then now you're coming back and you're like, okay, I'm like back to doing what I set out to do, but so much better and with so much more experience. And I get to blend in all of the things that I loved doing before. So it's almost like rather than coaching, since that's what you had been doing, you're like, no, how can I create and express and bring that into the thing that I set out to do? So I think it's just because I had no idea. This is new to me, by the way. I had no idea that like when you first set out to start your own business, that it was around creating authentic strategy and branding. And so I'm like, oh my God, like this is amazing. So it's almost like you've been doing this and working toward this for so long.
I have. Yeah. And it's really cool too, like to see like how you're saying this has come full circle. And I have so much more knowledge and experience now and a skill set too with like
Mhm.
actual designing. Because when I first started, I did brand identity, everything but the visuals.
Oh, this is okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like I was helping people be themselves.
Hmm.
And I was helping people figure out how to do that within a business.
Hmm.
And now I do that and give them the visual brand identity.
Oh man, it's so cool. It's like the intangible all the way to the tangible, right? It's like what's not, I mean, I don't want to say not real because it's very, very real, but what can't be seen, what can't be necessarily, it can be experienced, but again, can't be seen, can't necessarily be touched, and then like take it down to the material and represent it. I think this is so cool and it's beautiful because I can say I have firsthand experience with this in the work that you've done for me, right? Like it was so quick from the time you came on and started working with me, just like how quickly you picked up on the vibe, and not just how quickly you picked up on the vibe, my vibe, but how quickly you elevated it also. It was like taking the things that I would say to you or the ways that I would express to you, and then you would put it into a graphic. And I would just be like, wow, I could never do that. Like that is just like beyond my capabilities, right? Like I'm definitely a person that lives in and stays in the ethereal. I'm like, doesn't really bring that down, at
Mm,
least in a visual way, right? So um it's so cool that you have, well, that you've created the opportunity to bring all of it together because it can be so impactful for so many people. Um, I want to talk about, so since you have shared so much about how you've shifted many times, pivoted many times, and learned many times during those pivots. I think this is really, really important. Did not think we were going to go this way when we were talking about the podcast, but um, I think this is really important for people who are newer in their entrepreneurial journey, and or who have been an entrepreneur for a while, but feel maybe like they failed. because they don't want to do what they're doing anymore, or like a newer entrepreneur who like maybe hasn't quite gained traction yet, or like maybe has a similar experience as you where they've gained a lot of traction but they're like not really feeling what they're doing anymore. Because this is, I think it's such an important thing to talk about, because not only is it just as important to set out and do the thing that your heart tells you to do, but it's like almost even more important to learn to continue to listen to the heart when the heart says, We're done with this. We're not
Mhm.
doing this anymore." And especially, I think when you're making money doing something that your heart told you to do to begin with, it can be really hard to let that go. It can be really, really hard. And I was actually with you as you were letting go of your EFT business. And
Yeah.
like that can be really challenging, right? Of being like, this thing has supported me financially and there's nothing wrong with it. Even leaving your job, you said this, you were gaslighting yourself, right? Like this thing is
Mhm.
that there's nothing wrong with this thing, and yet I know it's not working. Can you talk about like what that has looked like and felt like for you? And then can we go into like some advice you would give to people who are maybe feeling that now?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely scary. I guess, can I give the advice first? Because
Of course,
it's the
yeah.
first thing
I
at the
love
top of
this.
my mind.
Yeah.
I would say, like, definitely have someone to talk to about it who
Mm,
can make sure, who can mirror back to you, rather, that you're not just self sabotaging.
mm,
Because, like, if you're newer at something, it takes time to gain traction. If you have a
mhm,
first launch and it flops, it doesn't mean you failed. That's
mhm,
normal. If it takes a long time for you to, if you're posting every day, like for instance, I just started a new Instagram account. I had like 4,200 followers on my last account, and I just started a new one, just switched over because like the it's just vanity metrics. Like it
mm,
wasn't converting,
mhm,
like they weren't people in my target market. Like I had really low engagement, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm switching. And like starting over, it's reminding me of what it's like to be new again. And like I'm
mm.
posting just about every day. Some of my posts, they don't get any likes at all. And it's like, what am I doing? I'm putting my heart and my time and energy into creating this content, and no one's even seeing it. But
Mhm.
that's just how it goes. So you
Yeah.
have to keep going, and it will pay off. But it's that consistency
Mhm,
that you need to have. And so, in that period, it's really helpful to have a coach or a friend who's doing the same thing you're doing, who you can cheer each other on and make sure that you're not getting in your own way. Right.
mm,
So,
mhm,
there's a difference between your heart telling you, your intuition telling you that this isn't right, I need to switch directions,
mhm.
versus I'm not seeing the results I want. So, maybe this isn't right for me, and I'm going to go try this other thing.
Mm. Oh, this is so good. I actually wrote down some things that I want to record in like another podcast episode, actually, so a little solo cast on something really similar, like results oriented work and behavior versus like heart oriented work and behavior. And this is so, so, so important because I think when we set out to do things simply to make money, it is so easy to give up so fast, right? Because we're constantly focused on, I want to make X dollars and I'm not there yet. I want to make X dollars and I'm not there yet. I want to make X dollars and I'm not there yet. And we feel like we're doing everything that we can and it's not happening yet. And I think, by the way, I don't think you have to have your heart behind you like with consistent action. I think that in the world that we live in, with consistent action and consistent messaging and like saying the same fucking thing over and over again and like good marketing, like your heart doesn't have to be there. People will come, right? It's like the consistency. And so I think it's so just great that you mentioned just how important consistency is. And then I think if you take on top of that, you're doing something um, both for external gain and for the heart, because that is present, right? And that's okay. It's like we all do that. Like I want to make a ton of money and I love what it is that I do. And it would be great if I made a ton of money doing what it is that I love to do, right? Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't, but like it requires a lot of consistency and it requires a lot of dedication. But not only do we get the disappointment if we're not like making the amount of money that we want to make right away, but then we also get the disappointment of like the heart, right? Like we
Mhm.
get this disappointment of like you said it so beautifully of like I'm putting my heart and soul into this and no one's even acknowledging it. And so there's like a level of despair that can come, and it can be so easy. It can be so easy. And then especially to watch people around you. Um, Now I'm kind of speaking specifically to coaches and people in the spiritual space. But anybody who starts a business, right? And you look at all of your peers around you, or especially if you have social media and you're like looking on Instagram or TikTok and you're like, oh my God, all these people are so successful and they're doing it so fast. And like, I'm not there. Something's wrong with me. Right. And then there's all of this like guidance that now I'm like really going out to the side, by the way. But like, and then there's all this guidance out there that's like, this came up in the quantum leap. I think in the quantum leap, we talked about this as well, but there's all this guidance out there that says, when you're aligned, when you're in alignment, you'll flow. Everything will flow. I actually like had a client, we were doing a find your purpose session, and she was telling me this was one of her beliefs of like, you need to find your purpose because when you know your purpose and when you're in alignment, your life gets easier. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, let's pause for a second because, like, yes, life does get easier in that, like, mentally you can like handle things easier because you know what you're here to do and you can do it. But life doesn't actually get easier, right? And things don't necessarily flow any better than they did before. It's just like you have to have this willingness to show up anyways, right? And then when we have this belief that says when I'm in alignment, everything works out. When I'm in alignment, I'm successful, I make a lot of money. Then what happens when we don't make a lot of money like tomorrow? We think I must be out of alignment. Something's wrong with me. I got to go fix it, right?
Yep.
When actually you don't have to fix anything. Nothing's wrong with you. You probably are perfectly in alignment and you just need to show up for another 365 days and see what happens on day 366, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like literally all it is. So
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. Okay, so like back to you and your guidance. So you said you having someone to talk about it is really important. And you also said this earlier of if you could go back again, you would hire a coach. Can you share more about this?
Um, I'm gonna edit this part out. Where do I want to?
That's perfect.
I
Please just keep
mean,
that line in there. I'm gonna edit this part out. It's so good. You're like, okay, yes, and I'm cutting it.
I mean, I guess this is vulnerable for me to talk
Yeah.
about. It feels vulnerable because we actually talked about this in a quantum leap session as well. Um, that from the outside it looked like I was really successful,
Mm,
but my income didn't reflect that. I had a huge following, and so this why side note, this is why I wanted to shift and start a new Instagram account because
yeah.
it's just the numbers are vanity metrics. They don't
Mhm,
mean anything. They don't.
mhm,
I am more successful now as a new graphic designer than I was as a coach, I think,
mm,
financially.
mhm.
Um, and I have what 140 followers.
Yep.
So why didn't I hire a coach back then? It's because I was in survival mode. And
Mm,
I ended up getting, okay, we're gonna go there. In 2017, like we got evicted from our apartment
mhm,
because money just wasn't consistent and my husband had lost his job and
mm,
like we were in a really hard place.
yeah.
So yeah, like it's easy to say like, oh, just hire a coach. But that's not the reality for everybody.
Mhm,
So that's why I also say like make sure you have just some sort of support system of people who are doing it too, who
mhm.
can have your back, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Two things specifically. One, there is no shame in the eviction game. Like shit happens, life happens, right?
Mhm.
Um, no shame at all. And actually, like to even go on with that, I love so much the vulnerability of saying, like, outwardly, it looked like I was so successful, but like in reality, this is what was going on in my life right now. This is so important because of the people who are new entrepreneurs who are like, oh my God, I see all these people with mad followers and I see all these people with these great offers, and these people are talking about like either how much money they're making or what they're doing or how amazing their life is. And like, my life doesn't look like that. What's wrong with me? my business isn't going that way. What's wrong with my business? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? Right? Like this is so important because what we see, because and I'll even say this for me, like I work really hard with the corporate psychic and on both of my personal social media account and my TCP account to be very, very authentic and open and transparent. And my TCP account is a business account. So I am marketing. I am like selling all the time. And it to me, it's very important. Like it's not part of my philosophy to actually sell my lifestyle. So I don't share as much about my lifestyle. And this is why I have my own personal account because like that's my life, right? Like there's some things that are just off limits to my business in my own perspective, from my own point of view. But I think it's important for even like my followers and like my listeners and like the people that are in my space to hear that the things that I post online are very real and I have a business and I'm selling my work, right?
Mhm.
Like this is important. And I think while it is absolutely my business and my work is a full reflection of my heart, like that's the intention behind my account, right? It is to like sell what it is that I'm doing, what it is that I'm working on. Um, and that's also why I don't necessarily talk about like money anymore and like because to me I don't want to work with anyone that wants to just make a bunch of money, right? Like I want to work with somebody that actually wants to touch into their soul. But this is so important again because so many people I think look out. I did this. I actually stopped following a ton of coaches that like always are talking about making millions of dollars because
Yeah.
I've gotten to a point of realizing that there's a certain level of coaching and like how we show and present our businesses that's not necessarily not real. It's very real, especially if you are actually making the numbers you say you're making. But it's also it's not really built on anything. And so there's just like nothing under it. It's just like this, like get in the energy of your work. And if you're in the energy and if you're the best person that you can be, you're going to make all this money. Just like hire a coach, right? And the reality is when you're starting a business, sometimes you can't hire a coach. Like sometimes that's just not top priority. Sometimes you don't have the budget for a coach and you're like, I gotta, and in which case I would say like find someone you can talk to and then also like get all the free resources that you can. Cause like all of us are throwing free resources out there like crazy like the podcast even like this research like listen ingest to free stuff because like you can build your whole business without ever talking to a person, right? Like a coach and a mentor can be a book that you read, it can be an author that you like, it can be a person that you really resonate with and just ingesting the stuff that they say because it's good shit, especially like Jess, everything you're saying is gold. You have massive amount of experience like up and down. It's worth listening to, right? I think it's so important to say this. And then I think I might have forgot the other thing I was going to say. Oh, and then actually being in your freaking work. It's like doing the work of a business, right? So like if you have a budget of let's say $5,000, that's a big budget if you're a new entrepreneur as well, especially if you quit your job, right? Like that's a lot of money. And you have the choice of like let's say branding and website development or a coach. Like I am a coach that doesn't do branding and website development. I will not help you with your brand, like not in that type of way. And 10 times out of 10, I would say to you as a coach, as a business coach, spend that money on branding and website development. Invest your money in the things that are going to give you an ROI. And like, yes, investing in yourself is always going to give you an ROI, but there are ways that you can do that for free. And like investing in your business in that way is actually so much to me logical, smart, logical, feels good, intuitively correct than like throwing a bunch of money at coaching and then like not actually doing anything with that, right? Because again, there's so much of the coaching industry. Well, I'm like really hating on the coaching industry. I don't mean to. I love the coaching industry in this industry, but there's so much of it that's built on nothing and that's just about making money. And like you have to have both, right? And like in order to develop that consistency of showing up, like yes, having a coach or support is going to help you. And like you need tangible things to make that work too. How have you navigated these transitions? Like the times where you've been like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then either you pivot or you don't. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's probably looked more seamless and confident from the outside than it has been behind the scenes. I mean, I really don't care about like what people think. So that helps. I've done a lot of work around that. Um, but it's the letting go is hard, dude. Letting go is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like we were saying earlier, especially when it's something that's made you money
Mm,
and like you've built the momentum and you know how to do it. Transitioning out of something that's working is tough. But, going back to what you were saying, and I don't know if this answers your question that you asked, but going back to what you were saying about alignment, I never really felt truly aligned when I was doing coaching and EFT.
Mm, mhm,
It's it kind of feels like it was a stepping stone to what
mhm.
I'm doing now, which also feels like a stepping stone to what I'm going to be doing next. And I think that might
Yes.
happen for the rest of my life because that's just how life goes.
Mhm,
But with creative work, it has always just been easier. It's flowed a
mm,
lot better because my energy has been way more open with
mhm,
it. There's been less resistance,
mhm.
less like mindset shit going on in the background. I was just happily creating and sharing, you know, and that made me money so easily. And
Mhm.
yeah, with coaching, it just always felt so hard. And like I was
Oh,
always trying to force it to happen. Um,
yeah.
so that kind of makes shifting a little bit easier because I'm because I've been, courageous enough to take that leap.
Mhm,
I'm proving to myself, or rather, like the universe is showing me, like, Jess, this gets to be easier. It can be easier. And yes, you're going to have
mhm.
to show up when no one's even seeing what you're doing. And you're going to have to commit and you're going to have to push through a lot of your own resistance on really like up level. I kind of hate that word, but it is what it is. I mean, it gets the job done. You're really going to have to up level and get uncomfortable to make this happen, but it's not going to feel like a struggle. It's not going to feel like you're
Mhm,
pushing a boulder up a hill anymore because you're aligned with this and this is what you're meant to be doing right now.
mhm.
You're not like fighting it. So
I
that
love
makes the
this.
transition a lot easier, just like being clear on where my heart is, what it wants to do.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I wanna say. Um, you said with creative work, it's always just been easier. You're just, like, happily creating and sharing. I'm highlighting this because earlier I made a comment that was like, "Yeah, coaches are like, just be in the energy." This is what coaches mean, by the way. This is what whenever
Mhm.
if I say that, I'm not sure if I say that, but if I say that, I'm sure I do, like, in actual coaching sessions or, like, group sessions. Being in the energy doesn't mean just, like, being in this high vibration and, like, this frequency of, like, that life is great and everything's great and things are flowing. Being in the energy actually just means I'm happily creating and I'm sharing because it feels good. And, like, I love what you said right after that of, like, "And it's making me money," right? Of course it's making you money because you're doing something that you love happily without this, like, pressure of needing, like, I mean, the pressure is always there, like, we always need money, like, I don't wanna minimize that because especially when you become an entrepreneur, you're like, "Fuck, I'm paying my own bills." Like, no one else is paying me anymore, like, I am now paying my own bills, which means someone else is paying me, has to pay me so I can pay my bills. So that's always there to some extent, but whenever we're doing the things that we really enjoy and we're allowing ourselves to be in that space, it does become easier from like a marketing and I'm sharing what I'm doing and now I'm going to make money perspective. Like that's what we mean by being in the energy. So I wanted to like pull that out. And then the other thing you mentioned stepping stones, like what you were doing then never quite felt fully aligned. But it was necessary. So I love that you're like, but it was a stepping stone into what I'm doing now, right? And this like almost full circle of entrepreneurship, but like full circle massive expansion type circle um has happened where you're like, and even what I'm doing now feels like a stepping stone and probably is. I think this is really, really important too, because sometimes when we set out to do something on our own, we want it to happen like yesterday. So, like,
Mhm.
tattoo school is such a great example for you. It's something that you've been holding in your heart for a really, really long time. And you know, ultimately, that's where you're going to go. And that's going to be a stepping stone into like literally something else, right? And like everything else is going to come together. Everything, not everything else, everything is going to come together with that to become the next thing that it is that you do. And I think this is so, so, so important to notice and to embrace and for other people to notice, become aware of, embrace, this realization that what we're doing right now doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah.
And it's okay, like, especially if you're like in a 9 to 5 and you're hating it, and you know that there's something else you're supposed to be doing, but you don't know what it is, but like maybe you don't have the money saved to quit, or you don't have the clarity yet to quit. I say like stay there and like be in it and be in the discomfort of it and know this is a stepping stone into something else, and trust that you're not going to be there forever. Like trust yourself that the moment you're ready to leave, you're going to leave, right? The same thing is true of like if you're in a business right now, you've created a business and you're either doing well or you're not doing well, and you're like, "Oh, this doesn't fully feel like it." But like there's a part of you that knows you're meant to be there. It's like the internal change is happening, and once the internal changes happen, the external change is going to follow it. So like trust that you're going to end up where you need to end up. And like stepping stones are not just okay, they're necessary and they're beautiful if we embrace them. I said this when I started TCP. I was like, this is something that I feel like I have to do. It's not something that I think I'm going to be doing forever. And that's hard for me to even say because especially when we start businesses, we have this dream of it like being the thing we do for the rest of our lives and supporting us, and it just gets easier and like we build this legacy or like whatever happens, right? But and it can be scary, by the way, to like, let's say leave your job or like leave one business for another business when you already know that the thing you're leaving for isn't going to be permanent. Like that can feel really scary, but um it's also necessary, right? So I think that's really cool. And then the other thing I wanted to say, so like last thing, and then it's like a question as well, is you mentioned transitioning over into more creative work and into a creative business, feeling really good because you had clarity.
Mhm.
How long did it take you to get that clarity?
Oh my
Like, what did
God.
it feel like before you had that clarity? I think this is important because like so many people don't have the clarity yet, right?
Yeah.
And I want to normalize that.
Gosh, it was, oh, such a struggle. Mm. Years. I mean, my whole life, really. I'm like, there's so many people I'm connected with. I really kind of don't like the word follower because I mean, they're people that I'm connected with that are amazing people. Like they don't follow me. Weird. But anyway, there's so many people like in my orbit that
Mhm.
all have sort of a similar journey to me, that like
Mhm.
they switch things up a lot, they have a lot of different interests, they're multi-passionate, they really want to find like the one thing that they're supposed to be doing, and like it's
Mhm.
been such a struggle for them too, and like I so feel for them because I've been there like up until very recently. um and like this goes along with something I wanted to talk about, like with the coaching space that we were just talking about, and how like being able to let go of that, I think, was harder for me to do than leaving my 9 to 5.
Mm,
Because when I left my 9 to 5, I thought that the next thing that I was going to do would be it. It'd be the thing, capital
mhm,
THE, right?
mhm.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm a coach now. This is my identity. This is my work. It's my life's purpose. I'm a coach.
Yes.
But I didn't have any sort of vision for it.
Mm,
I didn't know where I wanted to take it.
mhm,
And so I just followed a lot of other coaches and I saw what they were doing and what their paths were. And I thought, well, if I'm a coach, I need to eventually write a book. I need to have a lot of digital courses, do launches all the time, do group programs, have one on one. I need to become a speaker. I need to maybe hold retreats. And
mm,
so, like, I created this vision for myself based off of what I saw everyone else was doing and what I thought I wanted. I was really good at convincing myself that I wanted it. And I got very, very wrapped up in the coaching culture for years. And so that, I think, was the hardest thing for me to remove myself from. And it was really a change of identity. And I had to not care about what people thought of me. You know, if they thought I was failing, if they thought I was, oh, just another coach who's quitting. I had to let go of all of that and be able to see myself in this new way of, no, Jess, you've always been a creative. And like, it's okay to follow what's really lighting you up instead.
mm.
And it's okay to have a vision that's completely different from anything you've ever heard anyone else talk about.
Ugh.
So yeah, that's what brought me here. What was the original question?
Oh my gosh, no, I love this. It was the time it took for you to get clarity, but this is
Oh, the
so, so,
time.
so yeah, no, but this is so good. I'm like, oh
Years.
my God, let's like go with this because um even just like that line that you ended on of like it's okay to have a vision that you've like no you've never even heard before. I want to like emphasize that and actually say it's important that you have a vision that you've never heard before, that you've never seen before, that doesn't exist outside of your heart, that doesn't look like anything anyone else has done. And I'm not saying that we can't do things that people haven't done or we can't try other things on for size or that we can't hold a vision similar to someone else's. But what I am saying is that you know you're on the right path when it's completely undefined, when no one has walked it before you, when you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, when you have no idea like if your vision even makes sense, right? Like it's if you don't even have a vision, that's like even better, I think, than like holding on to an identity. And I don't want to say better, that's not true. We all do this, but holding on to an identity that's not serving us, right? Because that can be so hard and we all do it, right? Like we all exist in roles in our lives that are in some way shape or form conventional that come with like an identity structure, right? That says you are a wife so you do this, or you are a mother so this is how you be, right? Or you're a coach and this is like the life that you live and this is how you live it and this is what you talk about and this is the path you walk down. Or even like you start a 9 to 5 and you see the path of what people have done before you and like what their career paths have looked like and you follow it. um but it's so important as you're talking about identity and just being so um just I don't want to use the word attached, but it's the word that I can think of right now. So we'll say attached to like the coaching identity, right? Um, it's so beautiful to see you step away from that. Something that one of my coaches recently asked was, if you were to live in the edge of your becoming, what does that mean? And like really thinking about that, I was like, oh, it means that I would have to let go of everything that I believe I am and everything that I believe I have, right? And like ultimately at the end of the day, that's what identity is. It's like, who do you believe you are? What do you believe you have? What do you believe you bring to the world? And how can you let go of that so that you can just see who you are moment to moment? So you can just find out who it is that you're becoming as you're on the edge of that becoming. Because otherwise, we risk just like keeping ourselves in cycles of like, I don't want to say staying the same because we're always growing no matter what, but we keep ourselves in like old identity patterns and old cycles. Like I even think about, I have friends. Thankfully, I'm out of this now, but for years I had friends that I knew since like childhood or high school. And every time I would come back into town and see them, I would like revert to high school Marie. And actually my first name is Crystal. I would revert to like Crystal, right? Because like in high school, that's what people called me. Like in college, it kind of switched over. And so I would like literally change who I was and I couldn't even control it, but I was so aware of it. And I was like, why am I behaving this way? Right. So like identity can be so complex and hard to break, but it's really important in breaking our identity to literally let go. Like, how can you be like, I don't know who I am, and that's okay. And I don't know who I'm becoming, and that's okay. And I don't even know who I want to become because that person doesn't exist yet, right? Like, there's not even a role model out there for me to be myself. And like, that's how you know you're very uncomfortably, but like breaking into your own, you know?
And I think for me, it was actually letting go of those identities made me realize that actually I do know who I am and I do know what I want. And
Mm,
once I was able to let go of this identity of being a coach, Coach Jess, and also letting go of my perceived limitations, this is huge.
oh, yeah.
Like I said, how I had the perceived limitation of, well, I can't draw, so I can't be a tattoo artist.
Yes.
Like those limiting stories you have about yourself keep you from
Mhm,
being in your purpose. And so when I could let go of those things, then that led me to what I'm doing now.
mhm.
And that's what gave me that clarity of, okay, this is my path, which allowed me to then commit to it. And it feels like me. That's
Mm.
my benchmark now. Like that's how I know if something's right for me or not, or aligned or not. Does it feel like me? Is this
Yeah.
true Jess?
I
Yeah.
think that's such a beautiful realization of, yeah, the moment I let go of my perceived limitations and the moment I let go of an identity that I believed I had, I realized that I actually knew who I was.
Mhm.
Isn't that funny? Like, isn't that so funny?
Yeah. We're we're always there. Who we are is always there underneath all the other crap, and, like, our purpose is always there.
Mm,
It's just that we're not allowing ourselves to see it.
yeah. I love this. So let's like jam on purpose for a second because you did a
Mm,
find your purpose session with me.
yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me how your purpose has shaped throughout your life, and by shaped, like how you've stayed connected with it, how you've like lived it out, how it's been there with you.
Purpose was always something that I thought about and, like, wondered what mine was, but it wasn't actually something that I got serious about, like, trying to figure out until recently, or I guess since becoming a coach. Um, and I mean, let's just dive into the find your purpose session, because that was just a game changer for me. And the thing that I was so surprised by this, but the thing that really helped me the most was learning what my values were. And it's
Mm,
not what I thought my values were. So again, this is letting go of who you think you should be,
mm,
or what you think you should value, and really allowing your truth to come out without
mm.
judgment. And
Yeah.
one of my top 3 values that came out during that FYP session was beauty. And when that got uncovered, it made complete sense. I can look back at my entire life and see how that was a thread through everything I care about, everything I've done.
Mm.
And but I never would have let myself come to that conclusion on my own, because I had the story that that was vain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. Our values, this is such a, I love too that you brought this up of letting go of what you think you should value. I'm curious of what you thought you would value, by the way. Actually, yeah, let's talk about it. What did you think you would value?
Well, authenticity for one, which
Hmm.
definitely is one of my top values. Um, I don't think it was one of my top 3 though, surprisingly. But like the more altruistic ones, like helping
Mm.
others, like service, and
Hmm.
something that would sound really good as a coach, right?
Oh my gosh,
it can't
I
it
love
can't
it so.
possibly be beauty. Like, how superficial, right?
Oh gosh, this is okay. Like so many things are just like coming right now. Or that I'm thinking about right now. This is so good because when I worked at Microsoft, this is actually when I discovered my values, by the way, was through a coach came to one of my team's offsites and like gave us a values worksheet and said, it was like 150, 200 words and said, circle all the words that are important to you, cut it. And then she'd be like, all right, timer's up, cut it down to 50, cut it down to 20, cut it down to 10, cut it down to 3. And like, essentially that's what, if I assign values homework, that's what something very similar is what I assign. But as you know, if you come to a find your purpose session, we actually go through your values based on the way that you answer the homework for the find your purpose question, which typically includes vocabulary that's not on the values worksheet, by the way. It's very personal to yourself. And then we go through the words like 2 at a time and we're like, what's the most important thing? What can you not live without? Right. And I think this is so, so, so crucial to do this with a coach or another person, a non biased, safe space holding human being where you can truly express, because this happens with every single client that I work with, that whatever they think their values are, they'll come to the session and be like, I already know what my values are. And I'm like, great. And then at the end of the session, they'll be like, holy fuck, I had no idea that's what I valued. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you did, but like you didn't want to admit it because it doesn't feel good. Right. And so I remember when I worked at Microsoft, there was a point in time where company culture was like really all about values and like everybody was talking about values. And I thought it was very cool, except at the beginning it was really cool. But over time, like as it spread through the teams, I noticed that like every single exec's top 3 values all had family in it, like every single one. And then like almost everyone working for that person also would have family as a value. And they'd be like, family is a value. And I'd be like, interesting. And I thought something was wrong with me because even before I did the values exercise, I knew that family wasn't a top 3 value for me. But I wanted it to be, right? Like I wanted it to be, but I knew that it wasn't. And this might sound bad, we might say to like anybody who's listening of like, whoa. But it's honest. And it was going through the values worksheet myself and really thinking like, what words can I not live without? And like coming to the realization of what they were. It was this simultaneous full clicking of like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And because I did it at work, where everyone else is like, family is my top value, I remember feeling really self-conscious and nervous to share my values with everyone else because I was like, wait, no one else values these things. Are they going to think I'm a bad person? Are they going to think I'm like that I'm not good because family's not number one, or because like love isn't number one, or whatever the kind of common values were. But I've come to realize, like just as you, actually we don't all value the same things, and that's like what makes us beautiful. And then on top of that, it's so important to actually know what our values are, because they are literally the parameters for our happiness. Like they are literally the things that are going to tell us whether or not we're going to be able to thrive in an environment. So like if beauty is a value of yours and you're in a situation where there's like absolutely no beauty to be found, where you're not able to experience it in any way, where you're not able to appreciate it, you're just probably not going to be happy, right? Like you're probably not going to enjoy the situation that you're in. Same thing is true of like work. Like for me, authenticity is definitely a top value. And if I am not in a position like in a 9 to 5 environment, corporate environment, or even TCP related environment, if I'm in a session with somebody and I don't feel safe enough to be my full self, I will not be happy. Like there will be some discord or some conflict internally. And if we can't recognize, because a lot of times we'll go through our entire lives not knowing what our values are, being in all these situations that totally violate what it is that we value, what it is that we need or believe to be true in the world, but that we're denying in ourselves. Like deep down, we're like pushing it down. We're like, no, I love my family or whatever the thing is. No, I love this because I think I'm supposed to love this, right? Like, no, this is important to me because I think it's important. It's important, or it should be important to me, right? I think about people who like, oh my God, work in like public service jobs or like volunteering jobs because like they think that they should be serving the world, but like you can see it all over their faces. They're miserable. It's like, it's probably just because you're in a situation where you're not able to express your values or not able to experience your values. And it's like, how often do we just completely like abandon ship on a job or a career or a place or a relationship? I did this in my marriage. I like left a marriage because I wasn't able to experience my values. But at the time, I didn't have the language to even understand that that's what was wrong, right? Whereas like now I know what my values are. It's so easy for me to say to my partner, like, these things are important to me. If I don't feel them, I'm not going to be happy. So like we need to work on cultivating a household that allows me to experience this, right? Like same thing in a job or with a client, or if I'm working with a coach, of saying these things are really important to me. If I can't experience them, I'm going to have an issue.
Yeah. So finding out my values was a huge confirmation of the path that I was on. And it helped give me that confidence to let go of coaching and like continue on this path of like art and design and tattooing as well. And then also like when you opened up my Akashic records, like that was just a whole other level of confirmation that I need to be doing this creative work. So it was like you were just reflecting my truth back to me,
Mm.
but in a way that was very reassuring and gave me the confidence to really move forward and take those next steps.
This makes me so happy.
And I will say another thing that surprised me about the session I could never have expected was when you told me I could paint auras. And I didn't know that I had that gift. And wow, I really do. And
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
started painting auras, and yeah, it's been really cool.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Something that I'm actually recently learning, a little bit of a side note, is that as I've been working, so this month I've had like a 50% off Akashic Records reading. And part of that, by the way, more side note backstory, is because as I started my business, I started it doing tarot readings, Akashic Records readings, and career coaching, because those were all things that I had been doing, but like had never charged for. And I was like, these are things that I should charge for because people pay money for them. So like, why wouldn't I charge for them? Right. Like that's kind of how TCP really came together. And then like bringing all of those together, it was important to me because so many people would be like, well, I'm a career coach, so I'm gonna have a career coaching business. And then I'm into this spiritual woo woo stuff. So I'm gonna have a totally separate business from that. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're gonna bring it all together because that sounds like too much to like try to manage two different things and grow different things. And so I was like, how can we bring everything together into one space? So that being said, I really started my business in the individual sessions of like readings or like one-off coaching sessions, like resume and storytelling, because this is like number one, hands down, the number one thing that I would say in the corporate world of like interviewing and hiring people, where people just like fall short. It's like people are so talented and like yet they don't know what their story is, or they do know, everyone knows their story, but like they're not able to share their story in a way that's authentic, in a way that's real, in a way that's relatable, in a way that connects the dots of what the fuck they've done for their entire careers. And so I was like, this is something people need help with, right? Now I'm like really getting off track, but those were the things that I did. And then as I entered really the coaching space, it was by accident. Even though I knew I was doing career coaching and mentoring, it was like really getting into this world just kind of like happened. I started working with a coach that was a massive investment, and she's like making so much money. And she was kind of helping me shift my business into a way that I too could be making a lot of money and scale in a much bigger way. And one of the things she told me, and many coaches have told me this, is stop doing individual sessions. Stop selling individual one-off sessions. You and I have talked about this before. And so I did. I like stopped doing readings. I stopped doing find your purpose sessions. Although I did one for you, even though I wasn't really doing them anymore. And I stopped doing these like one-off things where I meet somebody one time, and instead I started asking people to commit to long-term coaching with me. And long story short, I've come full circle, and I'm like, you know what? I really miss reading the records for people, and I really miss really deeply connecting with people, even in a one-off, especially in a one-off fashion, of like just helping them figure out what their purpose is so that they can go out and do something about it, right? And like diving into their records so that they can figure out what it is that they want to do, or what it is that they're meant to be even thinking about or focusing on, or confirm where they are in their paths. But all of this to say is that recently, as I've been like really deeply into the records a lot this month, I've come to notice that when I read someone's records, I often experience their records almost in the ways that they have gifts of their own. It's been really interesting. So, like
Wow.
people who are like more visual, when I'm in their presence, even over Zoom, and I'm reading for them, I will get more visual like messaging. And so I'll like literally see things, and I'm like not a visual like intuitive human being. Like I'm not someone that like sees the future, or like vision, like sees things like perfectly clear. But if I'm with someone who like has visual gifts, I hate to use the word gifts, by the way, because like we're all totally psychic in so many ways. We're all like gifted. We all have abilities, and we can all like enhance abilities. It's very similar to drawing. You can practice like with skill, right? Like it's a skill that you can learn. Like even having visual gifts is a skill that you can learn. I think that's important to say. But somebody who has visual kind of gifts or abilities, if I'm reading their records, I'll often see it. And so I think it's really cool that that's something that I was able to confirm for you. And it's something that I've been experiencing quite a lot. So back to back to the
That's
podcast.
really
Back to
cool.
the topic. Oh yeah. So with the find your purpose session then, or paintings is something that you actually ended up starting to offer.
Mhm.
Are you still offering them?
I'm not really talking about it, but I still want to do them. I just got really into like starting this design business, and like there's only so much bandwidth I have. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially when we're starting a business, and I think this is really wise, by the way, to allow yourself to focus in on one thing at a time. Although I am going to just spotlight this in the podcast slash recording itself, of saying that if anybody would like a find your purpose, well, if anyone would like a find your purpose session, I'm here. But if anyone would like your aura painted,
yeah.
Jess is amazing. So
Mm.
DM her, reach out to her, email her. I'll put her. Oh, actually, you and I will together put your information in
I'll
the
put it.
description. I'm like, wait a second. um, yeah. So then with the FYP session, you did start painting auras. You did let go of your coaching business. That felt like confirmation for you. Um, how has that helped you shift into the work that you're doing now?
It's given me a lot more focus and like commitment. Commitment's something that I've had issues with in the past. And I never really wanted to fully commit to things just because I wasn't sure that they were the right thing.
Mm.
But now with having so much clarity, like, and I will say too, like when you're aligned with the right thing, and I don't even know if like we should say the right, there's no right or wrong.
Totally.
But when you're on a path that's like most aligned with like your higher self and like, you know, your authentic purpose, right? It's easier to commit to it because you're going to be more excited about it. At least that's how it's been for
Yes.
me. Like I am like eating, drinking, breathing design and art right now. And it feels like my truth and it feels exciting. And
Mhm.
also something I've been thinking about lately too is that I feel proud to be doing this work.
Mm.
I was actually talking to my husband about this yesterday, in that you want to be doing work that you're proud to tell people that you do. And
Mhm.
it's not that I wasn't proud to be a coach or proud to be an EFT practitioner, because that work is life changing, but it didn't feel super authentic for me.
Mm.
So I felt a little weird about sharing it.
Yes.
But I want to shout from the freaking rooftops that I do brand design, I draw tattoo flash. Just that excitement is what's carrying me through.
I love this. I love this. Um we can feel the discord internally when we're not doing things that are in alignment. I was trying to use something other than in alignment because I'm like, oh, we keep saying this, and like not us, like we, like the coach, everyone's like, oh, I want to be in alignment, right? Like, what does that even mean? Um, but when we're doing something that our heart's not calling for, right? When we're in a relationship that our heart doesn't want to be in anymore, there's discord, and there is like there's an element of shame that we feel around it, actually, where it's not that we're feeling it's like maybe it's identifiable, maybe it's not. But I do believe it's shame on some core level where we're ashamed because we're doing something that's not feeling like it's a fit, and yet we're doing it anyways. And so it can be really hard to talk about that, right? Like it can be really hard to be in the energy of the work that we don't want to be doing. It can be really hard to be excited about a relationship that we're in truth not excited about being in anymore, that in truth we know isn't good for us. In truth, we know we've evolved past. Which doesn't mean, by the way, that at one point it didn't feel in perfect alignment, right?
Right.
And I think that's the beautiful, and like that's an important thing to note, is that we're constantly growing and evolving. Um, our businesses should too. The work that we do outside of us should too. Our relationships should as well. It would make sense that they would be growing and evolving. It would make sense that one year it felt really great for you to be coaching. And then a few years later, maybe it didn't feel as good to be coaching anymore, right? And like maybe right now, this is what feels really, really good. And it's so important to honor that. And I love the sense of pride that you feel in the work now where you're like, I want to talk about it because it's important. And it's
Mhm.
not even just important, but it's something that I love to do and I'm good at it and I'm getting even better at it and I want to share about it and I want to like nerd out about it. That is totally a sign that you're on the right path when you're excited
Yeah.
about what you do. And it doesn't mean you're going to be excited every day.
I was
There's always
I was just
resistance,
gonna say
right?
that, like,
Yeah.
excitement is an emotion. Emotions fluctuate. So like you don't want to always base your decisions off of how you're feeling, of course. Yeah, it's the excitement, yes, but paired with that feeling of just like true authenticity and like pride to be doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also this. So one of my coaches explained integration in a way, and alignment in a way that I really, really, really love. And it's so much simpler than I think the way that we often talk about it. Um, and essentially, what she said is when we are integrated, it means that whatever it is we believe, whatever it is we think, whatever it is we feel, however it is we act or behave, all of those things are in alignment. right? Like what we believe on our corest of core level, all the way to the way that we're acting and being in the world, those things are in alignment. And that's actually what integration is. They're all the same. And we feel out of alignment or out of integration when one of those things is out of alignment, right? Like when we believe, like let's say, when we believe that running a business is bad, but then we run a business, we're not going to feel good while we're running our business. And so I think it's important to note as well that sometimes we can be doing something that, like on a core level, we believe to be not right for us, right? And like oftentimes, like that's a huge flag for like maybe I'm not in alignment, right? Like maybe my heart is saying like I shouldn't be coaching, but like on the outside, I'm actually coaching. And so like things feel, they don't feel so good. They feel sticky. And I think anytime we feel that sticky situation, because that's different, the stickiness is different than an emotion. It's different than excitement. It's different than like despair, right? The stickiness is like there's like a discord. There's like some days it feels really great, some days it doesn't. It's like, maybe I need to evaluate and investigate what that is. I think this is important to talk about because sometimes it's hard for us to commit because it's truly not right for us, right? Because on a core level, we know this is what isn't what we should be doing. So of course, it's very hard for us to follow through on our actions. And then sometimes we can't commit to something because it is right for us, but like maybe there's like something along the way that's out of alignment. Whereas like we have a core belief and there's a conflicting core belief about it. Or we have a core belief and like the way we feel about it is different than the way we actually believe about it, right? And like that means the way we act is going to be not necessarily in alignment with the thing that it is that we believe. So I think it's important to just like get really curious, whatever we're feeling like, should I be doing this anymore? Or is this the right thing for me? Or I'm feeling out of alignment. What does that mean? As opposed to being like, I'm feeling really out of alignment. I should quit my job. Or like, I'm feeling really out of alignment. I'm just going to like throw away this business that I spent 7 years building. Right. Um,
You
and
know,
so, yeah,
something interesting, sorry to cut you off.
no, it's perfect.
Something really interesting that I've noticed since diving like all in to brand design is that the limiting beliefs and like all the like negative self talk and stuff that I used to have when I was doing coaching, when I was doing
Hmm.
EFT, it's either not there or it's easy to quiet.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
fascinating.
I don't have the same worries
Hmm.
occupying my mind day in and day out. Um, I'm not worried about what if someone can't afford my rate. I'm not worried about gaining followers. I'm not worried about like I'm not doubting that this business is going to be successful.
Hmm.
I just know it will be. And I know I'm going to have high paying clients and, X, Y, and Z. Like
Hmm.
it's weird. It's really interesting because I used to have such a hard time with mindset in my coaching business. And now it's like that shit doesn't even matter. I'm just going.
Yeah, this is interesting. Do you think that this is because of all of the mindset work that you've done, or do you think it's because, and I suspect that it could potentially be part of this, but I suspect that maybe it's like the latter. Or do you think that it's just that you're in a place that is in more in alignment with what it is that you feel you're meant to be doing?
Yeah, I think it's both. Because like I just turned 40 and I just feel way more grounded than I always have.
Mm,
Like
mhm,
turning 40 has been what's it been? 3 weeks, 4 weeks? But it's been the best thing that's ever happened in my life. Like I love being 40. And it was like a switch was just flipped.
hmm,
Like I just do not give a fuck about a lot of the things that I used to care about even weeks ago. And I feel so much more grounded in who I am and
mm,
so much more focused. And like, I know what I want and it's fucking time to make it happen.
mhm,
So, like, yeah, I think it's a combination of like work that I've been doing that's led up to this, and also just being so aligned with what I'm doing now.
mm. Oh,
Like,
I
it's
love this. I am excited to turn 40.
it's the best.
That sounds so magical. And yeah, I think it's such a great point. I think it's always a culmination, right?
Mhm.
Anytime we're in a place where everything feels really, really good, it is always a culmination. And I think it's important to say too, there's a great majority of our lives. Maybe I'm like blowing it up by saying majority, but there's a big portion of our lives where we're just uncomfortable, right? Where like things are just like uncomfortable. Like we're not meant to just be, and I don't mean uncomfortable. I mean like life, the human experience is not always easy. Not that it can't be, not that it doesn't have to be, not that we don't get to have the most amazing experiences every single day and have the best day ever every single day. Of course, we can always have that every single day should we choose to. And being a human just isn't always that, right? It's not always just like beautiful and sunshine and roses. And I think it's so important almost to even honor that and honor the times where we really felt uncomfortable for like X years or months or weeks or days, or had that underlying like discord, or had the underlying like I'm not in alignment, or things aren't really working out for me right now and I don't know what that means, and still be happy, right? And still be grateful for the life that we're living. Um, but I think it's important because all of it does culminate into something, and it's really beautiful as it unfolds if we let it, right? It's really beautiful if we choose to see it. And it's, I don't know, I'm just like in my feels now about like all the years
Yeah.
that led you to 40, right? And I'm like, ah,
Well,
you
and
needed all of it.
that's also why people look like they're an overnight success.
Yes.
And they can show up and
Yes.
talk about how things are popping off for them,
Hmm.
and or you can look at people online and jump to conclusions about their success. But like, take me for example, like things are going really well for me right now, but also the past 7 years have been trying. Like, this isn't my first year in business. This is my third business and like going on eighth year.
Hmm.
So like it everyone's journey is different,
Hmm.
and sometimes it takes time.
Sometimes it takes, oh, I think every single time it takes time. Actually, I think every single time it takes time. I don't think even the people who just like get lucky, quote unquote, typically they're people who have been working really hard at whatever it is that they've been doing for a really long time, and like maybe they get lucky because they happen to be spotted, right? Like maybe like a musician is like playing on the corner and they like happen to be spotted, but they would never be spotted if they weren't playing every single day for however many years before that moment, right? um or like somebody might be marketing themselves for like years and years and years and years, and one day just like something clicks in the rest of the world, and like the world catches up and they're like, oh my god, we need you, and you're like, I knew that you guys needed me. um, I think that's really important to note. And even just like growth, I remember, man, in my like early mid 20s, I so badly, I like knew that I had a book in me and I so badly just wanted to like write it. And I remember reading something by Cheryl Strayed where she said she could not possibly have written the work that she did until she was like in her 30s. And it was like simply because of the it's not even the life experience that she had between 20 and 30, right? It was like processing the life experience even before that. It's like there's just a certain amount of time. It's like seasoning, right? Like
Mhm.
some things just take time. And I don't want to say that like every business is going to take X number of years before it pops off. But I am saying, like, if you have a business and you just started and it's popping off within a year, it's probably not just because of the things that you've been doing for the last 6 months. It's
Yeah.
probably because of the things you've been doing for your entire life that are now like opening pathways for you for your business. And so it's really, really important. Just back to like the something you said earlier in the episode of consistency, it's really important to like hold strong and be consistent, because you really never know when you're going to turn the corner, and it has nothing to do with the material things you're doing in that moment to turn the corner, right? It's nothing to do with the way that you've been running your business even for the last 3 months. It has everything to do with all of it, right? It's like
Right.
all of the things are what led you there. Um, but sometimes that's hard to see, appreciate, and grasp, because especially when we start out on something new, we really want to hold on to something tangible that says if I do X, I'm going to get Y. And if I do, because someone else did X, they got Y. So like I want to do X and I'm going to get Y. But life just doesn't always unfold that way. So many things. So good. What
Yeah, we've
else?
been talking for like an hour and a half already.
I know. I was just thinking you're gonna have so much to edit. Well, I also want to talk about like what's inspiring you right now.
What's inspiring me right now? Mm, learning is really inspiring me. Like being a student right now is feeling
Mhm.
really fun and exciting. Um, and I'm learning like new skills, new programs, and just really nerding out on design. So really like anything design related is inspiring me. Um, definitely like tattoo artists are inspiring me. Just always like keeping that in the forefront of my mind to keep that vision alive. Those are the big
Mm,
ones right now.
I love it.
Like really, I guess I'm inspiring myself, which is a nice change from
Mhm.
just constantly watching other people and wishing I could do
Yes.
whatever. I'm like actually doing it. Seriously, 40 is amazing.
I love this so much. I wish that everyone could feel this way. And I do think whenever we're living authentically, we should be inspiring ourselves. And I don't want to say like if you're not inspiring yourself, you're not living authentically, because I do think sometimes we just have this, we're self-conscious, right? Or like maybe we're not believing in ourselves and not feeling like we're worthy. Like there are always these underlying things that maybe keep us from feeling that. But it's so cool to hear you say I'm inspiring myself. And I hope that so many other people feel this about their own selves, because when I'm really in my groove, I inspire the shit out of myself too. Like I'll be like, oh my God, I just did that. Like, and I just did that. That means I can do like this other thing, right? Or like, oh, I'm so excited right now. Um, yeah, so I think it's really beautiful. And I think shifting from that, watching other people doing things to just doing them yourself is a massive, just massive shift
Yeah.
to celebrate. I do want to ask you though, what are you working on now? And if there was one thing that you wanted to invite people into in your world, in your space, in your business, what is that?
Mm. So I currently have two branding packages, and I am taking new clients for October start. So that's super exciting. I am booked out a little bit, so that's really fun to say.
Mhm.
Um, but I have a full brand identity package, which is, you know, the basics: mood board, color palette, typography, logos, icons, that good stuff. And then I also have an Instagram identity brand package. So for any service provider who's wanting to focus on Instagram for their main marketing platform and is tired of like trying to DIY their branding, their posts, all of that. And I've definitely been there, just like overthinking everything and, you know, changing up my colors every month and just being all over the place and just wanting to look way more professional, but also still be authentic. Then that's what I'd really love to be doing in October, to be honest, is help a couple people with their Instagram branding. And for that, you would get like full aesthetic mood board, color palette, typography. And then also you'd get an Instagram audit. So I would help you with your bio and calls to action, all that good stuff. And then you'd get templates, like 20 post templates, story templates, highlight covers. Yeah, like anything you would need to thrive on Instagram. That's what we're going to do together. And also
Mm,
like a ton of clarity on just like who you're talking to, what you want to say to them, what your offers are, how to talk about it in a way that's really true for you, and not having to follow trends to attract those people. That's a big
mm.
thing.
Yes, I think I can tell you for sure so many of my clients are over trend following, are really over like social media and Instagram marketing.
Mhm.
And so I think it's really important to have, I'm so excited that you have an offering like this out there. I mean, I already work with you, so I can attest to just how amazing your work is and just how pivotal your work has been for TCP in general, and like not only just the All Up brand, but our presence on social.
Mm.
But I think that this is really good, and I'm going to actually push on this a little bit for any of my existing clients that may or may not be listening. potential clients, people that like never become clients of mine, but just like listen to the podcast, um, but have their own businesses specifically or have some sort of presence online. Marketing on social is important. It's not everything, but it's important. And it's important because it's a free platform, right? Like it's a way to put yourself out there that's completely free, that allows yourself to be really authentic. And it can be really, it's like the number one thing that a lot of my clients have issue with is like, I really want to do this thing, but like I don't want to be on Instagram, or like I don't want to be on TikTok, or I don't want to put myself out there in this way. And this is why hiring someone like Jess is really important because it gets you, you said this, but it gets you out of your head. It gets
Yeah.
you out of your head. It allows you to show up in a way that allows you to detach your identity from the business and to detach who you are as a person from the work it is that you're bringing to the world, which is really, 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 really important. So reach
And
out to Jess.
I think sometimes too, like when we say, oh, I don't want to do this or I hate this platform, that's not necessarily the truth, but it's more of like you hate the like how hard it is to create the content, or how hard you feel it is to create the content, or how
Mhm,
what you think you need to do to get seen. And
mhm,
like those are all just stories. Like, yeah, the
mhm,
algorithm is a thing, but it's constantly changing. And so what I'm going to help people do is create a brand and create a strategy that's going to last and going to be doable for you. So you can be consistent and not try and like ride this wave of the algorithm and have to jump on all these trends that don't feel authentic for you, but
mhm.
really like create a way to enjoy being on this platform and creating content, and in a way that connects you with people and the right people. You know, it's not about getting like quick followers. It's about how do I attract the right people for the work I'm doing.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and I love even you mentioning clarity on who are you even talking to, right? Attracting the right people and really connecting with them because ultimately it's like it's those connections that come through for you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Thanks so much for having me on your
You're
podcast.
so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you not just for being here, but for being such a great friend, for being such a great media manager, for being such a boss, for inviting me into your world and your life, for showing up here, for everything, all of it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Eee! Thank you.